Welcome to our podcast, Parenting by the Pint. Enjoy the show.
Greetings, Minivan Mafia. Lauren and I are longtime friends from Chicagoland that love getting together to chat about life, kids, family, and beer.
Each week, we'll feature a brewery and sample at least 2 of their beers.
We'll also discuss a variety of topics ranging from parenting, pop culture, travel, marriage, and just about anything else that comes to mind. Thanks for joining us for another episode. Here we go. We're going to start with another great beer that I don't think I've ever had a beer from this brewery before. I'm not sure, although I have heard of this one, which wasn't the case last time.
Yes.
So this is, yeah,
Same.
This is Stevens Point Brewery, which Lauren pointed out to me right before we hit record is in Stevens Point, Wisconsin.
Can't forget. It's in the name.
I knew the brewery was in Stevens Point. I forgot that Stevens Point was in Wisconsin, which is funny because actually the sign stop has some vendors that are in that town. So I occasionally will be like mailing checks that direction. Okay. So it is something I am familiar with. But we also sort of noted right before we hit record that this first beer we're going to drink is called Lakeside, and it's described as a vacation ale.
It doesn't tell us if it's an APA, an IPA, a lager, a what. That's vacation ale.
Is that a beer style? Like, I just
don't think so.
No.
I was like, I don't think I've had either. I've never had a vacation ale, or I've had a lot of vacation ales. If it's just an ale while on vacation,
so
could
yes
go either way.
No, then yes and no. We did discover that it's a wheat ale. So we do know what it is now. But I do have a funny story. I described it as a mystery beer when we were looking at the labels. And I remember, man, this had to be could have been like 10 years ago. I went out to this bar with a friend, and it was just like a random weekday. It wasn't like a night out, really. It was just kind of like grab a beer after work. And they had like 50-cent or quarter mystery beers. It was really cheap, like really, really cheap. And we ordered them, and it was like about 3/4 of the time it was some disgusting malt beverage that just happened to come in a bottle. Yeah. And then once in a while it was a beer. And so you were really rolling the dice. And about 3/4 of the time we would just not drink it. Like we would taste it and then be like, nah, I gotta get something else.
That's fair. At least it's cheap. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's try vacation ale and see what we've got going on here.
Yeah. It's got a nice, just like golden flavor, golden color to it. It had a bit of a head when I poured it, which deflated quickly.
Yeah, same. When I first poured into the glass, I was kind of like, oh no, I'm going to make a huge mess. But it really subsided very quickly. Yeah. So, I like it. I could definitely see drinking this on the beach, having like 3 or 4 of these on a hot day.
Yeah, I was going to say it's very light. And I feel like it just tastes like an ale. Like a vacation ale actually is an appropriate name for this because it does, it's not overly weedy. I feel like if this would have said wheat ale, I would have had a different impression of it because it's not super, some wheat ales are a little bit too much of the graininess to me.
Okay.
I feel like this is...
Yeah, I get that. I could see how you would feel that way about some wheat ales.
Pretty light, pretty refreshing. I could totally see this by a beach or on a boat or something like that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. On a boat. That's a good one.
It's not too heavy. Sometimes when there's a lot of I feel like a lot of summery beers sometimes have different adjuncts, which sometimes are a little artificially tasting, but this is just kind of a clean, crisp, just beer. So it's actually pretty good.
This is good. I would choose this over most light beer, like North American domestic type stuff. This is a good version of that. Like
this is a perfect substitute for a North American domestic. You know how sometimes when we interview people and we're like, what would you have someone try that normally drinks North American domestic to get into craft beer? This to me is like the perfect beer to kind of jump from North American domestic into craft. Like this is a really good stepping stone, I think, to that.
That is perfect. That's exactly right. I would totally offer this beer to somebody.
Remember this. Yeah, I like that.
Actually... Well, how are we going to forget Vacation Ale though?
Right?
I mean, you'll probably remember.
I'll probably will remember, particularly on vacation. So no, I'm totally in on it.
Tell me about Stevens Point Brewery.
Yeah, so you've heard of Stevens Point Brewery, and a lot of people have heard of Stevens Point Brewery for a number of reasons.
Okay.
But one is because it was founded in 1857. It's the fifth oldest continuously operating brewery in the United States and the third oldest currently privately owned brewery in the United States.
What?
Yeah.
That is insane.
1857 it started. Yeah.
I did not see that coming.
Right?
I did not know you were going to say that.
Yeah, I started researching them and I was like, holy crap, like this has been around
so old?
For a long time. And ironically, so the brewery opened a year before Stevens Point was actually founded as a city. And one of their marketing slogans at one point was like, build a brewery and they will come. Which is true, because that's
apparently
what happened. Yeah, so they've been around forever. I mean, 1857 is a long time. Yeah,
jeez,
crazy,
there were
right?
States that weren't states then.
Yeah, right. So, but it's crazy because like they didn't actually distribute outside of Wisconsin though until 1990. Like they were open for over 100 years before they left Wisconsin. So they haven't actually been distributing to Illinois for that long in the actual lifespan of the brewery. So
that's so crazy, this is
right?
Such a great story.
It's really cool. So they opened in 1857. The town was founded in 1858. In 1860s ish, they actually provided beer to Union troops during the Civil War. So
oh my god,
super
the
cool.
Civil War.
Right? They sold to various people throughout the years, but usually it was some sort of, family here and there, etc. It was renamed officially to Stevens Point Brewery in 1902, but then it was reorganized into Stevens Point Beverage Company during the Prohibition to try and stay in business, which we said they're the fifth oldest continuously operating brewery in the United States. So they made it through a Prohibition by making near beer, which was legal at the time, which is 1/2 of 1% ABV. That's what near beer had to be, more or less.
I think we talked about that when we did the non-alcoholic episode.
We did, yeah. Mm-hmm. So they made that through Prohibition, and they also made soft drinks. So they stayed open, and a lot of other breweries shut down, obviously, through Prohibition, but they kept going, and as soon as Prohibition lifted, they were ready to start producing beer again, like immediately. So they continued going. In the 50s, they started canning. In 1973, they got a huge jump in publicity because they were rated the top American beer in a taste test by a reporter from the Chicago Daily News. Now, keep in mind, they weren't distributing to Chicago at the time, but he did a taste test and recommended it in an article in the Chicago Daily News. And so it did get the attention of a lot broader audience in the 70s. So then they've grown obviously a ton over the years. Like I said, they didn't start selling outside of Wisconsin until 1990. They were briefly owned by a Chicago-based company called Barton Beers, who own a variety of other things from 92 to 2002. But then they sold it back to a pair of Wisconsin real estate developers. So for the vast majority of the lifespan of this brewery, it's been owned by just private ownership in Wisconsin. So which it still is to this day. So in 2002, they introduced gourmet sodas. So they brew beer, they have cider, and they do soda currently.
Okay.
So they still do have kind of a variety of different beverages that they create. They won a Great American Beer Fest Gold in 2003, which also continued to put them on the map. There's also a variety of different outside of just Stevens Point or Point beer, which is generally what their logo is. They also have Whole Hog is another one that is under their brand.
Okay.
James Page was a Minnesota brewery that they wound up buying the rights to, and they brew there as well. Baraboo Brewing Company, which only distributes in Wisconsin, I think, to like Hy-Vee and a variety of grocery stores. And then
Okay.
Cider Boys, which is a huge cider company,
Yeah.
is theirs as well.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
that's all under the Stevens Point Brewery Company. Now, one of the other reasons that a lot of people hear about Stevens Point is they are one of the largest contract brewers in the United States. At any point, they have 8 to 9 different other
Oh,
breweries that they are brewing for at their facility. So in an
okay.
interview, the head brewer said about 40% of what they produce is actually contract brew,
Wow.
which is huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's a
yeah,
lot.
so they've been around for over 150 years, and they also brew for a variety of other companies in their facility. They've invested millions upon millions over the years in, technological advances and different things. You can go there and do brewery tours, which I would love to if we ever go. They're not far from Galena, actually.
Oh,
So
great.
yeah, so like if we ever head out that way, I would love to do a tour, but yeah, I did not have any idea of how old this company was at all when I first picked up the beer because I actually picked it up while we were on vacation, hence vacation nail. But I had heard of it before, nothing, I didn't know much about them, but like I had no clue that they've been around for nearly as long as they have.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah, so anyway, so that's a little history about Stevens Point Brewery.
That's awesome. I just like did not realize that at all. But it's funny that you began by saying that, well, everybody has heard of this brewery because they've been around for all of eternity. Your
Right.
grandfather knew about them.
Probably, exactly. Like, and you don't realize it,
Yeah,
but they've been around for
that's so
for a
funny.
very long time. Yeah, even like most of their contracts to brew are Wisconsin companies, but like
Uh-huh.
Hopewell brewed there for a while.
Oh, okay.
Like even
Okay.
like Chicago companies
That's
that
cool.
needed space started brewing there. So, and it was back in the 1850s, it was started by 2 German immigrants who probably needed somewhere to make their beer. And we're like, well, I guess we're gonna do it in, it's not far from a river in the middle of the
Sure.
Midwest, and sure, why not? So,
Sounds
um,
reasonable.
yeah. So, yeah, so
That's
pretty cool, I thought.
that is pretty awesome. Well, I don't have a graceful segue into our topic
Yeah, all right.
tonight, so we'll just get right into it. And Lauren and I kind of randomly just suggested at some point that we talk about like, all those little, we call them BS jobs that we've had over the years before we got into what were our grown-up jobs. And maybe, as Lauren has said many times, maybe someday she will be a photographer, and maybe someday I will be a travel agent. I don't know, or a carpenter. I'm not sure. But up until until we
Who
reach
knows what the future holds?
we can share all of these little professions that we've had along the way that have turned us into the well-rounded, capable parents that we are today. um my illustrious career in the working world began as a child,
Mm.
as someone whose father ran his own business. The laws about employing young people are a little bit
Minors,
different
yeah.
when you work for your father.
Hmm.
Although it wasn't what I would call a formal employment. I didn't get a W-2 don't tell the government. For my first job at the Science Stop, my father used to do these mailings where he would send out postcards, and it was a big form of advertising for him when he was like building the business early on. And I'm going to admit this because maybe people don't realize it's a good way to reach out to people when you sell something that they need. So like we have learned that if you send mailers to companies that like have the need for what we sell, there's a really good chance they're going to start to become customers if you are like, hey, guess what? We do the thing that you need. And so when it's funny, it's a funny lesson that I learned from him, because when he used to push it really hard 10 years ago, I remember my brother and I just like rolling our eyes and talking about starting a website, and he was just like, ugh,
He's like, postcards. No. Yeah. No website.
Yeah. But when I was a child, my job was to put the address labels on the postcards, and he would print out a sheet and like one of those printers with like the pegs on the roller.
Yeah. Yep.
And it would print out 30 labels on a
matrix
sheet.
Printer. Yep.
And I was paid a penny a label. So for every sheet of 30, I would get 30 cents. So usually my job, ended with like $5, because after that we'd run out of labels. Or something like that. But yeah, my first BS job, which I guess isn't BS because, I still work there.
That's true. It's just doing a different task now, but
he was just planting the seed.
Building. Yeah. My first job was also underage though. Like I walked there. So I was a shampoo girl in Worth at a salon that's no longer there. But I made like no money. I mean, it was like a couple bucks an hour at most. Like it was not
sure.
Yeah, but it was a job and I earned a little bit of money and it was something. And for some weird reason, I wound up working at 2 other hair salons. I don't even like cosmetology. Like
That's
it's not
so
my
weird.
thing at all, like literally at all. But I wound up later as like a teenager working at 2 other salons. And one of them I started just as a receptionist. The other one I started as a shampoo girl, wound up being a receptionist, and then wound up doing their bookkeeping. So,
geez. Well,
so it made its way a little bit better, but yeah, not anything that I would have expected myself to go into, like that particular realm. With nothing wrong with it, just not me. But yeah, so my very first job was shampoo girl.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I actually proposed that to my niece, who is, more sort of job seeking age. She's
sure.
17 now.
Yeah.
And she's 17. Yeah, man.
That's crazy.
But she, like I was like, oh, you might want to look at working at a hair salon. Might be nice. It's not difficult, and she was kind of like, oh, that might be good. Yeah. So she kind of considered that for a while, but ended up at Old Navy folding shirts.
Well, my next jobs was Marshall Fields folding shirts and
sure, yeah.
Things. That one I definitely spent quite a bit of breaks at for the holidays and whatnot.
Oh yeah, I didn't do I did not have a job as a high schooler. I worked a little bit summers at my dad's shop.
Sure.
I think I want to say either between junior year and senior year or between senior year and freshman year of college, I worked most of one of those summers at my dad's shop, kind of regularly, like
a real like a job.
Weeks at a time, not just like off and on or coming in when I feel like it. And getting paid, like actually making money doing
not
it.
Volunteer work,
yeah, not forced indentured servitude or whatever that was.
That was definitely forced.
Yeah. but I guess you could say the first like outside of family real quote unquote job that I had was I was gonna work through a temp agency, and I was in high school, maybe it was senior year. No, it must have been in college one year. And I was home and I was going to work for this temp agency, and they hired like a gajillion people to work a Pampered Chef convention that was taking place at McCormick Place downtown.
Oh, wow.
And this was a long time ago. And it's funny because sometimes now as an adult, and it's been a while, it doesn't seem like quite as big of a thing as it used to be. But when I would get invited to a Pampered Chef party, I would occasionally tell the consultant that I could have gotten in really early to that organization because people did try to recruit me at the convention. And it was funny. I was like, man, I'd probably be really rich right now because the number of people at this convention was so low. And Pampered Chef is based in Chicago.
Yeah, and it's still around. Like, I buy their spatulas every time someone has a party.
There it is. Yeah. I always get those scrapers and a handful of other little things. But
I've got those in my kitchen right now. Yeah.
Yes, they're good for everything.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, I was just working the convention. I was literally the person that was like standing outside of one of the rooms and would be like, this is where your lecture is or whatever. Like,
sure. Yeah.
I made almost no money doing it, even though I worked like 10 hours a day. I had to be there at like 5 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
I remember one day I was like, I didn't have enough gas and the gas station wasn't open. Like, it was not open at 4 a.m.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I had to like I think I had to go home and take one of my parents' cars.
Oh, jeez.
Like, because I was out of gas, which was not appreciated. Because not only did I take somebody's car, but I also left them with an empty tank of gas.
Which was not appreciated, I'm sure.
But I would drive to McCormick Place to work it and I would pay for parking, so it would like kill most of my profit.
So whatever you made was literally just paying to get there, pretty much.
Yeah, I didn't make a lot of money at that. That was a mistake. I worked it for like 2 weeks and it must have been the type of convention where they had like, it was like 3 days at a time for guests, because they did like 3 banquets or something over the period that I worked it or something like that. And I ended up eventually driving with somebody else, this guy that was working the convention that lived in Mount Greenwood. And so I would like drive to his house at like 5 a.m. and we would drive, and he had like a parking pass for somewhere like across the street. And we would park there.
Saved you a little
money.
So
I saved some money the last like week that I worked or something like that. But tell me more about Marshall Fields. I want to hear more about the Marshall Fields job.
I worked at Marshall Fields for like Christmases and summer break and like other. It must have been in high school because I did work some during the week. So it definitely, I think I worked it when I came back for college as well, but I did work it in high school. And like started out folding shirts and putting crap away from fitting rooms and, putting out merchandise and all that stuff. And then, I kind of worked it partially at the time for the discount. So like, then like when you work retail, when everything's going like on markdown too. So like you would just go through and be like, I'd like that. I'm gonna stick it over here for me to buy later. It might have been a wash there too with what I made versus what I spent. Like for a while, I would just come home with like wardrobe of a bag full of new clothes for no good reason other than I was bored while I was at work and I was shopping. So but it wasn't a bad gig, honestly. At the time when it was actually Marshall Fields, like, which is now Macy's for everybody, they were bought by the May Company, which is actually out of Minneapolis, I believe. Is the Target company, and then Macy's bought it. So it went through 2 different buyouts. I was there when May bought it, but then I left before it was Macy's. So I still have like my old Marshall Fields credit card, and I have some like old Marshall Fields like plates and things and miscellaneous Marshall Fields stuff. I still have like a Marshall Fields shopping bag from like 20 years ago or something like that. More than that.
That's
even.
A good one.
But yeah, they were actually, it wasn't a bad company to work for as a teenager at all. By the time I was done working there, I was working in HR doing some of their like implementation moving to the new company, so I wasn't as much on the floor, but like it was cool at the time. Like they had personal shoppers that would like shop for just people who didn't feel like doing it for themselves. So I would help with like pick out outfits and things like that
Nice.
for
That's
various
cool.
people. So it was actually it was definitely not a horrible job as a teenager. You know what I mean? I was going to say though that I also worked a temp job when I came home from college one summer, and they placed me in, I don't know if it was HR, some sort of office position at Oak Forest Hospital.
Okay.
So Oak Forest Hospital was opened in the 1800s, so 1854, and it was essentially a public long-term rehab facility that anyone who didn't have insurance, who was uninsured patients from all the other Cook County hospitals, would get sent there. So it was
Okay.
referred to in the 1900s as the Poor Farm.
Oh,
And
geez.
it still exists today. I'm not sure in what capacity, but they have acres upon acres of land too. But if you go there, there's a heritage trail and there's cemeteries on the grounds from people who had died there when it was a sanitarium back in like the 1800s,
Oh,
early
yeah, I know what you're
1900s.
talking about.
And I swear to God, the place was haunted. Like I would have
Yeah.
to go into the basement to like old file rooms and stuff, and there
Oh,
were
geez.
parts of that complex because there were underground tunnels that you had to walk through from one building to another building, and it was all underground.
Mm-mm.
And I
No.
swear that place was haunted. Like there is not a doubt in my mind that
Oof.
people who died there, their souls stayed there and haunted those
Oh,
basements.
man.
Like I would run through things as fast as I could to try and like get to whatever the
Oh, man.
storage room was. And like I lasted a couple of months and I was like, this is not worth my sanity, like at
Like,
all.
I will
But
go insane here.
yeah, it was creepy and
Yeah.
weird and like
Mm-mm.
it was interesting, but it was
Sure.
definitely not for me. So that was my temp agency experience, was the haunted hospital. So
The haunted
yeah.
hospital. Oof. Yeah, I guess mine was slightly better then with the whole 5 a.m. wake ups. I'll take that.
Yeah, yeah, it was interesting.
When I went away to college, I started working at TIS, which is a bookstore like
Oh
but
yeah.
the classic college bookstore, right?
Yep.
Where it's like got the books, but it's also like where you get your Illinois shirts and where you
Hmm.
get, and they had like school supply type stuff too, but it was really just like t-shirts and textbooks
Yep.
was the thing. But here's the weird thing about that place. So if you recall, I don't know if you recall, I started working there uh to do something during like rush, like the beginning of the year when
Mm-hmm.
everybody's buying their textbooks and everything, the first couple weeks.
Sure,
And they
sure.
hire a bunch of like temporary help for just 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do is you check people's backpacks in. They
Mm.
walk through the door, you take the backpack, you tell them what number slot you're putting their backpack in, and then when they come back to the front after they buy their stuff,
Mm.
they tell you what number it
And they
was,
take
and
their
you grab
backpack.
it. And
Got it.
there's like 20 people checking in backpacks. Like it's
Because there's
just like a
so many
crowd.
students. Yeah. I remember
Yeah.
walking into that bookstore. Yeah.
And so when I started, that's what I did. And they were like, "Does anybody want to keep working through the
Hmm.
school year?" And I was just like, "No, I don't want to do that. This was enough. I don't know why I did this in the first place, but I'm done." And somehow they kept putting me on the schedule.
I
And
do think I
also
remember this.
somehow I got moved from the front end, which is like a cashier or the people checking people in, to the sportswear department where I was basically walking the floor and helping people with, putting away merchandise, doing what you were doing at Marshall
Sure.
Fields
Yeah.
initially,
Retail.
where I was like folding and doing a little bit of customer service and,
Hmm.
stocking the back, inventory type stuff and things like that. But I have no idea how they were able to somehow get me in there. I don't remember expressing any interest in it. And I had that job for all of
Oh my God.
college,
For all of
starting
college. Yeah.
freshman year.
That's
I
so
worked there
funny.
the entire time I was at college, and it's just so weird to me.
But you wouldn't have if you
But
would
I
have had
was
to stay at the front the whole time.
no,
Like,
oh
that was
heavens, no.
miserable.
I was never going to
So,
be able to stay at the
yeah.
front end.
So somehow you magically just, found a job that you could tolerate.
I
So,
know it was a good job, and there were
yeah.
nice people, and the boss of that department, he was a really cool guy, and he was really nice.
Yeah.
He was very tolerant of my total unwillingness to work during football games or basketball
Uh,
games because I bought season tickets to those things.
yeah.
What I found bizarre slash interesting is that everyone else in the sportswear department had zero interest in
In
sports.
sports.
None.
That's ironic.
It's another reason why I'm not sure how I got that job, because they were like, you have to work football games. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do
Yeah, I'm not
that.
gonna do that.
I don't even want to work the away games because I want to watch the
Watch
game.
them on TV. Yeah, Agreed.
And I'm like, how did I get here?
Apparently
And like,
nobody else cared, so it worked out.
yeah. And like when my boss would be like, okay, we're going to make the schedule, he would make the schedule like, I don't know, more than a month ahead, maybe like 6 or 8 weeks ahead.
Mhm.
And you would have to put in what you could and could not do, like your class schedule and things like that.
Sure, yeah.
As far in advance as possible. And there were times where, like, for example, I would go to visit Mike and I would have to put in that I would be gone a full weekend or something like that. And honestly, I rarely worked weekends because I was either going to a football game or I was
going out of
visiting
town.
Mike.
Yeah. Yep.
But I would work during the week and I would work evenings, like was pretty flexible otherwise. But yeah, I still can't believe that they never fired me for being totally inflexible with my work schedule. I mean, like, just not willing to compromise at all.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was a reason, I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even think I was really that good at it. But I mean, whatever. It's fine.
It worked out. It worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm happy I had the job, although I will say that I had very little respect for my pay because I spent most of it on going out.
Yeah, it was just your spending money at that point.
It really was. Yeah. And they would cash your check there. Like, I didn't even have to have a bank account.
Oh, you literally just,
I just went downstairs and they cashed my check. And then I would go out.
Then you'd have cash. You'd go out.
Yeah, do whatever activity I was going to do.
I fell into a job at school as well that was incredibly random, and I don't even remember. I think I just applied. There was like a job board like online of postings, and I wound up delivering medical documents and other miscellaneous things across the campus to all the various like medical buildings or the gym that was there, to like the the trainers and all across campus. And I would do it twice a day. So I would do it like in the morning and then again in the afternoon in between my classes, and I used their van, and I would just pick up stuff at, the medical building and go to various places around campus. And we did that. I don't even know how I figured out where I was going. It's not like you had GPS on your phone at the time. I must have known or looked at a map or knew how to read a map, I guess. But they would just give me the address and these things, and you're like, you have to drop off this envelope here, or you have to drop off this cooler of unknown things to this other medical building. So I don't know what I was dropping off. It was all just campus buildings though, and I would do it twice a day, and I would collect a paycheck. And it was a great job because they literally were like, all right, what's your schedule? Okay, just come in before this class and come in the middle of the day in between classes, and was super flexible. And I did that for years.
Yeah.
At one point, the most exciting thing, or not really exciting, but memorable thing that happened was when I was at whatever the rec center was. I don't remember what the gym was called there. It was a big facility, but I went to turn the car on. It was a minivan. I went to turn the minivan on, and the hood essentially caught on fire, and the whole car went up in flames. And I got out and was standing in the parking lot, and the whole car, literally, the whole front of the car was just up in flames. So I had to call the fire department. I had to call my boss, and they came and picked me up. And eventually what they determined was the car was parked outside and the squirrels had chewed through the gas lines. And when I went to start the car, it caused a spark. that then actually caught the car on fire.
What?
And then it just spread. Yeah. So like literally that's what
so
happened
cool.
to the van I was
Can
driving.
Can we just take a moment to reiterate how good it would be if U of I would change their mascot to the quad squirrels?
Squirrel, right? Yes.
Like these squirrels, you guys. Okay, I know every college campus has squirrels. You don't have U of I squirrels. These
literally,
guys,
were the cause
they run
of the
that place.
car starting on fire. Like
they
legitimately.
made Lauren's car light on fire.
Yes. It was a relatively scary ordeal, but like literally I turned the car on and like hood flames, and because there was so much pressure the hood popped up and I could see the flames coming out from under the sides of the hood. I was like, that's not good. Out of the car. Okay, I'm just gonna stand here, and I literally just watched the car burn. Like I just stood there. Yeah.
I mean, at least it wasn't your own car. That's good.
Yeah, no, I was happy that it wasn't my vehicle, but also I was like, oh crap, did I do that? And then they were like, no. And then after they investigated and whatnot, they were like, yeah, no, it was the squirrels. It was literally the squirrels. So yeah, so that was my like last not real job before like graduating from college and getting an actual job.
Yeah. The only other job that I guess I would call a BS job is when I graduated from college, I decided to get my real estate license before going off to law school.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I had my real estate license, I don't know, for several years. And the reason I would call it a BS job is because while I could see how people would make money as real estate agents, I could totally see how you would do that. There were many occasions where I would go to like trainings or I would interact with other real estate agents, and I would think to myself, you are not doing this in the most cost-effective way possible. Like, and I'm really weird about that. Like, I don't like to do activities that I don't profit from.
Right, that aren't worth your
labor.
Yeah. No, I totally get that.
That doesn't mean I wouldn't volunteer to do something. But if I am in a position where I'm, not actually like helping society, I want to get paid. Like if I'm doing it because some guy is looking for his next condo to flip, like you're going to pay me to do that. So like,
agreed.
I don't know. I was okay at it, but never considered it a full-time gig. I helped some family find houses, and mostly I helped people buy houses. I didn't sell ever. I don't think I was ever the listing agent on somebody's home.
Yeah.
And I was never like, oh, you don't want me to help you sell your house. Like I never had a friend ask. I don't think I ever had somebody ask me, and I never had a moment where I was like, oh, I can help you sell your home. Yeah. Because I was a law student for most of the time that I had my license, and I was just like, yeah, I don't have time to help you with that. Like, if you want to go look at houses on the weekend, I can do that with you. Like, I can help you find a house.
Sure. Yeah, but I'm not gonna list it and do that work and do.
No, I'm just not the role that I realized that pretty quickly. Fortunately, and for me, I think it's a lucrative career.
If that's what you want to devote your time to, totally fair. But if you're doing it like as a part-time gig, doing something else, like then it's not really your thing, So you're not gonna spend enough time to make good money off of it. Yeah. I wound up, graduating from college and grad school, and then just going straight into the wonderful world of accounting, and here we are. So, but I had a variety of interesting jobs getting to that point.
Yeah. Well, I found my way back to my first job, putting labels on postcards. Yeah, which is just like a different version of what I do every single day. No,
it's a little bit more complicated now,
But it's funny to me to think about how I got where I am, because I went to law school and I met a bunch of lawyers who seemed really unhappy at their
And you're
jobs.
like, maybe I don't want to do this.
And I made a very complicated decision. I say complicated because I'm not going to tell the whole story, to leave and to figure out what my plan was, and ended up at the sign stop and immediately fell in love. It was like, oh, I'm just going to do this until I figure things out. And it was like 2 weeks later, and I was like, I'm not leaving.
I'm just doing this.
I'm just going to stay.
That works, though. Whatever.
And it was awesome.
And
I loved
what
it.
you just needed to figure out. That's where you needed to be.
Yep.
Someday I'll figure out what I want to do when I grow up, but until
we'll
then,
have another episode.
I have a job. So that's what matters at the moment, is that I am working. I am employed.
Yes, I'm paying the mortgage, as they
Yep,
say.
pretty much. So, all right. Well, let's drink our second beer here while we wrap things up.
Let's drink cookies and cream stout, which I hope is exactly what it says it is. It's got pictures of Oreos, although they're not being called Oreos because I don't think you're allowed to say that. But that's what I'm looking at.
Smells like chocolate.
Ooh, it does smell like chocolate. That's what I want. I want some chocolate right now. I was gonna have some like candy or something after dinner. This is gonna do that. Yeah. This is gonna be my after dinner candy for today.
It smells like chocolate. It tastes like chocolate. I can get, the cream part is the harder piece, I think, to get the flavor of in beers, but I do feel like it's a good mix. It's a well-balanced beer that's not overwhelmingly chocolate. Like, you feel like there's something else in there,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little, I don't want to say, it's a little lighter,
It is a little lighter. It's not
heavy
thin
stout.
Exactly, but it's a lighter, it's a lighter consistency. I think it's not, some stouts are really heavy. Like, I could probably drink this beer, there's often bottles that I'm like, oh, I'm not going to finish this. This one's light enough that I could drink it and not be like, oh, that was way too much.
Exactly.
But it's a good, well-balanced flavor that's not too chocolatey. I feel like it's got a little bit of that sweet, creamy flavor mixed in, and it really, to me, does taste like what it's supposed to taste like, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, this is good. These beers are good, man.
They are good.
For being such a new brewery, they've really knocked it out of the park.
Right. Yeah, now I'm interested if I see, other beers from them again. They definitely would be something I would pick up. Like, both of these are totally different, but good in what they are trying to be. Like, they're very much as advertised, which is really how I evaluate beers. Is this hitting the mark of what they were trying to do? And I really think both of these really do that. So
yeah. I agree. I think they do. And I, like you said, this cookies and cream stout is very, like, I almost describe it as user-friendly beer, because
it's drinkable. Yet
again, you're drinking something that maybe you find somebody who likes Guinness, and you want to bring them over into trying an adjunct stout. And you could put them on to this, and they would probably really
They probably
like
would. It's not like carbonated feeling. It's not too heavy. It's a really good flavor, and it's a really drinkable beer. So yeah, I am totally happy with these choices. So yeah,
me too.
I will definitely give Stevens Point a try again if given the opportunity. So
yeah,
I like it. All right, cool. This was fun.
All right. Well, someday maybe we'll be talking about how we're brewers. No, that's not going to be the next job.
I will just be the taste tester.
You will be leaving that to all of these lovely people that are already doing it. And we will catch you guys next time.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for listening to the latest musings from Parenting by the Pint.
Be sure to find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to us wherever you find your podcasts.
Have a great week, and cheers to you all.